Hi guys, remember Chris Philip, the former policing minister, the guy who was called out as a liar by the RMT's Mick Lynch? Well, he was speaking to Adam Boulton on Times Radio ahead of the budget this week, and the Tory claimed that Starmer's party had lied to the public about tax rises. Now, this is in relation to a promise not to increase national insurance on working people. Well, it turns out national insurance may rise, but it will fall on employers, not employees. Adam asked the shadow leader of the Commons if his party in government would increase taxes to fix public services, and this is the response we got.
You know, we're a relatively small parliamentary party these days after the last election, unfortunately. So we are going to have to work together as a team. I think unity is going to be very important, working as one team, demonstrating, competence, demonstrating we've got the ideas to take the country forward. And look, I think with this budget coming in just a few days' time, there is a lot to go after. The Labour Party have essentially been dishonest with the public. They basically lied to the public during the general election by saying they weren't going to increase taxes. And now it turns out they're going to be putting in place huge tax increases.
Just on that, do you think there is a need to invest in infrastructure, and do you think there is a need to increase taxes to fill black holes left behind by a dishonest Conservative government?
Well, the black hole thing, I think, has been comprehensively debunked. At least half of that claimed amount relates to above inflation public sector pay rises.
No, that's
which the current Labour government
not the long-term
decided.
Black hole.
Well, I mean, Jeremy Hunt set out a budget last March with 5-year forecasts that the OBR signed off, which I think had so-called RDEL, resource expenditure, that's the day-to-day expenditure on services like the health service and education, going up by inflation plus 1%, so 1% above inflation over the next 5 years. So that was all set out. Now, Labour are likely to be about to make a choice to increase taxes very significantly to spend on different things, including massive pay rises for train drivers without any improvements in efficiency in return. Now, that's a choice they've made. But they lied during the election, right? They said in the election they wouldn't be increasing taxes beyond the very limited tax increases in the manifesto. They are clearly about to go way beyond that. And if they believed that, they should have been honest with the British public and made the case and had the argument during the election. But they didn't do that. They were dishonest. They lied to the British public in order to get elected.
Who's the expert here on honesty and dishonesty? Well, it's obviously Chris Philp. Okay, look. You notice that he dodged the question. Would you increase taxes to fund public services? Would you increase taxes to fill the black hole from, your dishonest Conservative government? And of course, he avoided that question because he knows that, public services under the Conservatives have been run into the ground. There are schools, hospitals, court buildings, infrastructure crumbling, literally crumbling, and that all has to be rebuilt. Rebuilt in a literal sense. And in order to achieve that, well, you need to borrow, you need to increase taxes, or you need to find out some alternative. Now, the Conservatives, it's easy for them to sit on the sidelines and just snipe and say, look, you're doing it wrong. Oh, look, you're increasing taxes. Part of the black hole that we're talking about, and in a sense, black hole is not the right term to use, but I would prefer to use the term underfunded public services, because what's happening is the new government is coming in, they're opening the books and they're realizing, my goodness, the situation is a lot worse than we had expected. And it's not just about finance, it's about infrastructure, it's about public services. Now, it seems that in this budget, and this is all speculation, of course, but in this budget, the NHS will be prioritised. But there are other departments that are expected to take a cut. Now, this is at a time when the public services have already been run into the ground. So it's going to be an extremely difficult situation for government ministers. But the last thing they need, of course, is the Conservatives who have run these services into the ground saying, why aren't you investing more, or why aren't you cutting more? So they're going to take two approaches. They're going to say, look, public services are crap now, even though they had run them into the ground. And even if the government tried to invest more in those public services, the Conservatives will jump onto the other side of the argument and say, you're spending too much money. So it's important that they're challenged on this, like Adam Boulton has done here, call him out. would you increase taxes? And I think this should be the approach journalists should take with the Conservatives. So what would you do different? Would you increase taxes? Would you borrow more? Because as you know, public services have been run into the ground. They can't get away from that. They can start talking about, the fastest growing economy in the G7 or whatever. But the question has to be, what is the state of public services? And what would you do to fix that? Let me know in the comment section, guys, what you think about all of this. As always, your comments are greatly appreciated. Thanks a lot.